Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back, everybody. I want you to do this for a moment. Think about all the relationships in your life. And I mean all of them, not just family, but work relationships, friends, all of them. Now, think about how many of them you would consider as healthy relationships. Then again, that brings us to the question, what is a healthy relationship? We're going to talk about that today with an amazing psychologist. And this all comes from her amazing book, Love Yourself, Love Your Life. Specifically, this is chapter 7, Creating Healthy Relationships. I'm glad I have a great relationship with her. I consider it healthy. And Creekmore is back with us. How you doing today?
Great, Steve. How are you?
Very well, very well. And this, I'm asking this question of others to think about the healthy relationships in your life, but made me think for a moment.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there are some that probably need to be moved over to a certain category. Maybe one that's puts them at less of a priority because you might feel that it's not really that healthy or supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
What is a healthy relationship?
Well, like you said, I mean, it's one that you feel is healthy and it supports you and as them as well. I mean, it's a supportive, healthy relationship based on being loving to each other and helping each other, have well-being. That you can trust the person to be reliable and to be there for you and care about your feelings. And
It's funny. I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but in my journey, and this was about 3.5 years ago, somebody said to me, and this is somebody who I've known since I was 17. So she's kind of like my sage, the voice of reason. She's also a therapist. Good to have one on speed dial. And she said, you know what? In your situation, your life, she referred to some people and she says, those people don't serve you anymore. And it sounded dirty. It's like, oh, like those people don't serve me. Like I'm the king on the hill.
Oh, I see.
You all go away. You be gone with yourselves. And then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, they don't serve. And then I had to process what that meant, but they don't fit in my life anymore as they did. And I don't fit in theirs. So those were some that I, moved to the different category. And because if it continued with them, it would be unhealthy. It wouldn't be
exactly
fulfilling. Yeah. It would be just uncomfortable and all of that. In your chapter 7 of this, Creating Healthy Relationships in your book, you mentioned something about shadow. What is shadow?
Mm-hmm. Shadow is your shadow self, kind of your, maybe your wounds, your issues, if you will, your baggage that you bring into the relationship that doesn't set it off in a good way, any relationship really. Often we project our shadow to the other person. Sometimes we can think about somebody, say, for example, that annoys us or disturbs us, and then ask, well, what is it I don't like about that person? And then think to yourself, then, okay, well, how am I like that? When do I do that? Because it's kind of more of a self-discovery. Like, kind of sometimes we don't like when somebody does something that we kind of do ourselves that we feel uncomfortable about ourselves about. And it can be a way of having insight of what we're doing and working on self versus just trying to, get the other person to change.
How does one realize what they need to work on? And isn't that the biggest challenge? Accepting, admitting, yeah, you know what? I'm perfect. I got some things that are, that need a little bit of work there.
Exactly. Yeah, that little exercise that I just mentioned, where you kind of say, who really bothers me? And then say, well, if I could describe it in a few words, well, they're rude or they're hurt, or whatever their thing that bothers you about them, and then going back within and saying, well, when do I do that? That can be a way of self-discovery, like, or in what ways do I do that, and can I forgive myself and them for this, or become aware and work on this area in myself versus trying to get them to change.
Hmm. It's a shame that sometimes, well, let's put it this way. We all got stuff.
Exactly.
We all have things going on,
Yeah,
and things from our past really chart the way we act in our present
exactly,
and future. Um,
exactly.
but sometimes the way we act triggers others or causes them to act a certain way. And
Right.
sometimes you could be, a good person. You got some stuff out there. You're in a relationship with somebody. Uh, Maybe you react a certain way here and there. It's and not nothing major, but that's the dynamics. But unfortunately, sometimes the other person in the relationship reacts another way and takes it to a whole other level.
Exactly.
What do I
Yes.
mean by that? That could be cheating, that could be abuse,
Mm.
that could be divorce, that could be all of that. Meanwhile, you're doing your thing here. Again, we're not perfect, but that made that person, I don't know if that's even right to say, made that person do something. They reacted in that way.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and it could be so off balance. But once you figure out what's going on there, you realize what's happening in your life in terms of these relationships, right?
A lot of it has to do with communication and how the communication is received or understood. Like you might say something, for example, I think what you're saying, you might be triggered about something and maybe come and say something that, not in a loving way to the person. And that, of course, wouldn't be. And then they, or maybe even what you said wasn't even intended to be negative, but because of their wounds, they take it a certain way and feel like you're not, caring about them. And so then they act out if they use that as a defense mechanism. It's kind of an immature defense mechanism to act out the feelings. But that people do that, of course, and
Hmm.
that can even include just drinking and then going, being unfaithful, whatever it is they do is their coping mechanism. Um, and then it snowballs, just small things can snowball. Whereas if, the communication was able to be received, sent lovingly and received that way, it would be increasing the intimacy and the healthiness of the relationship.
So much to navigate in relationships, isn't there?
Absolutely, yes.
Hmm. What else can you tell us in cultivating a healthy relationship? Things we can do, things we can soul search and realize in ourselves.
Yes, yeah, it's really important to kind of have. I think everybody can use therapy because, like you said, we all have stuff. I mean, even if it is with your friend, that's a good person that can be, and people with accurate empathy, people who can empathize and kind of get to a level of what you're feeling, and then maybe take a little deeper, help you understand yourself a little bit better. These are good friends, and who are
Hmm.
acting therapeutically and healthily in the relationship, not about themselves, not just talking to you about something because that would work out for them, and kind of narcissistically. And it looks like you had something on your mind. What
No, I'm just thinking, I'm processing all of this, and I don't think I've ever done this, but I'm gonna masks down here.
Yes.
What did you realize in yourself that maybe you needed to tweak a little bit to cultivate those healthy relationships? Now, I
Oh,
can share for me. Absolutely.
okay. You first.
You're such a psychologist. Um, for me, it was getting comfortable with myself, so that loving yourself, which we've talked about, and realizing that I didn't have to be perfect.
Mhm.
And I never realized how that was impacting my life, in general, but even relationships. Um, the perfectionism thing, definitely, and
Yeah.
I traced it back. I figured out where that was coming from.
Right.
But that I held on to that for decades,
Mhm.
literally decades. And yeah, everything's a learning experience, but I wish I let go of it way long ago because things would have been different in my life, but that's how we learn.
Mhm.
But those things, definitely once you make those changes, the relationships change or the way you look at relationships.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, loving yourself is just the core. Being at a place of inner peace and love is just
Mm,
the place where we all have to be before we really relate to another person. I mean, if we're coming from a place of, thinking negative thoughts about, yourself or what's going to happen to you or what's going to happen in the situation, it's
mm,
just going to wind up creating that. Remember, we're talking about the cognitive behavioral therapy. The most effective form of therapy is changing your thoughts from being negative to the positive so that affects you to be trusting and open and receptive to your own good. And then you're going to do things that are going to create the good and it's going to work out much better. But so it's great just to go within and identify what you did and get yourself to that place of self-esteem and loving yourself so you can come from that place with other people.
Now, the therapy that you mentioned, what exactly is that? Um, I've
It's
heard it said before, but I'm not really
Yeah,
sure.
it's cognitive behavior therapy. It's considered about the most effective form of psychotherapy. And cognitive means thoughts. Change your thoughts will change your behavior, and then it will lead to the better outcome in a situation. And then the example I give is, I think I've given this before, but it's like, say two people get the same job performance evaluation and it's their name, different names on it, and it's the same. It's a good one, has a couple improvements or things you can work on, and one person is coming from the lower self-esteem, not feeling good about themselves, and sees criticisms only, doesn't see the whole good review. It's kind of narrowing their vision down to fit their belief system. Well, I'm not that good, and therefore this report in front of me, I see it as not that good, even though the whole thing, 3 pages, is good, and there's two things like, oh, and we could work on this and that, and so it turns into a bad situation because you can only see your viewpoint. Your own schema in your mind about yourself affects how you read it, even, and what you actually see. And then you see, oh, well, these people, and then the self-talk comes based on, oh, well, they hate me here, they're going to fire me, I'm a loser. Well, that is going to lead to those to negative feelings, feeling discouraged, and then you're going to act in a discouraged way. You're going to like give up, maybe, or maybe you're going to get angry at them, project it out, and have an attitude. That's not going to go well. You're going to, get scattered and anxious, not know what to do, and then you don't do well on the job. Whereas if you have this, the positive, loving self coming from a place of inner peace, and that's going to work out and it's all okay. And you read this great little, report about yourself and you see a couple things on it and you go, oh, well, I'm smart, I'm capable. Hey, I didn't, new challenges, I can do this. Well, then you come
Mm,
from a place of giving yourself a pep talk and your behavior is going to reflect it. You're going to be trying harder and doing better on the job. And it was all from kind of your selective, reading of it and then how you interpret it to fit with what you think inside yourself. So basically,
mm,
cognitive therapy would be, even like fake it till you make it. It's not just that. There's more to it if you're in therapy, but in a sense, just catch the negative thought and then stop it. Like I wouldn't say that to a friend, or family members. I'm not going to say to me, what's the positive? How could I see this in a positive light? And say that to yourself and then start creating the good. It's like, I mean, you never know. I mean, even in that situation where there was a couple of challenge areas, you could create a miracle from it. It's like, oh, and we really like you to, do this. And maybe you'd expand yourself into a new job role, even of one you could create for yourself, and kind of be open to the miracle of, hey, if I see the good, there's so endless possibilities for the good to come from this particular situation I'm in. But you have to come from that feeling of love and peace and openness to love and peace to create that and be open to it to happening.
So that's the starting point. You have to
Mhm.
find that inner peace. You have to find that love for yourself
Mhm.
first before you can take these other steps.
Exactly.
Fake it till you make it. Wish I
That's right.
wish I knew that years ago.
No, exactly. And
There's
you
nothing
should.
wrong with that. It's just
Right.
a feeling of confidence. Um, I've learned, dress for the role.
Right.
You're showing up somewhere. Don't worry about what other people are wearing. Dress for the part.
Right.
And people will, and I've experimented. I've,
Mhm.
worn different things at different events.
Uh-huh.
People treat you differently. They respect you in a different way when you dress a certain way, i.e., dress up a little bit as opposed to, maybe dressing down, or
Right.
it does make a difference. I fake it till you make it's great. Um, do you feel, and I don't like using cliches, but it comes to mind when you were explaining how we look at things. Situation, you get a report and there's this much positive, but then there's this much negative. But then you take the negative and you blow that up and you're focusing on the negative. Is it sort of looking through things with rose-colored glasses? You put them on and that's your positive filter. So you're always looking at, at the positive way, as opposed to just taking the negative and blowing that up.
Exactly. Right. I mean, if you have, we internalize different triggers, traumas, everyday traumas, things our parents said, not thinking, that the negative things they said, they called you stupid, anyway. I was going to share that, that's something that kind of like, we're Italian. I say, "Oh, you're stupid" or something. Parents, and for a while, I started to think I was stupid until I got my doctorate. And they say this happens for a lot of women, actually, where I was thinking to myself, "Wait a minute, I'm getting a doctorate. Maybe I can't. I'm not stupid." But you know what I'm saying? We get this certain, so I had to use the cognitive behavioral. I'm so glad I was exposed through becoming a psychologist. Just start catching those negative thoughts like that, and like, no, I'm not stupid. I'm smart. I'm capable. I can do this. So
Gotcha.
you'd asked me earlier for an example, and that was one. And I know a lot of women, if they get some sort of professional status or just get their degree in whatever their specialty is, that does help women to, get over that too. There's kind of a women thing too, of not feeling maybe that, having dealt with being second class citizens for a
Well,
long
okay. Isn't that imposter syndrome?
Yeah, yeah, and then but it's okay. You just like fake it till you make it, and it isn't an imposter because you are good and you do deserve good, and we really want to just get back to all realizing that so that we can come into a situation feeling good and be open to the good that's going to transpire in front of us.
Hmm. Um, Imposter syndrome is real. It really, I was speaking with somebody the
Right.
other day. Um, make this very short, but he hasn't pulled the trigger on creating an event for his line of work. And a number of us were all talking with him, and he hasn't moved forward. And he has to do it within a certain time frame because of the accreditation he has for his work will expire. He's allowed to do these events and use the tools and everything that he pays for. And time is running out. And we're like, man, how come you didn't schedule this? You have to create this event, which can bring him income. Um, and we even asked him, I said, do you have imposter syndrome? Like you feel like you're, and he said, no, I don't think that's it. I have an ego. He goes, I'm good with that. But uh, he's not sure if he's afraid of success or afraid of failure. So he hasn't figured that out. But where I'm going with this is
Mhm.
put the rose colored glasses on. He has so much going for him and he doesn't see it. He
Right.
is so professional, commanding when he walks in a room, speaks well, looks like a male model. Like he's like got it. Like I don't care what he's selling, you buy it. you know,
Got
but
charisma.
he's afraid to pull a trigger on it. It's interesting how perception is not the reality because, when I first met him, oh, dude's got it all going on there. Well, not the case. Not the case. So we're
Right.
trying to walk him through that. But something is holding him back. But he's not taking stock in all the good stuff he has. And they're really good.
Right. So we really just have to work on changing our thought patterns from being negative. We're negative thinkers. And that's what holds us back from everything that we could have.
Mm.
And we deserve the good. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a key word, deserve. Many
Mm-hmm.
of us don't realize it, but deep down inside, we feel that we don't deserve these things in our life. And there's something more that's holding us back, right?
Right, right. And then that's where therapy can help by, going and exploring, well, what are these things that hold me back? What are my triggers? And looking at the childhood, negative self-talk that you've learned to say to yourself, accidentally, inadvertently picking it up that you need to change so that you can start to, come from a positive, feeling confident position and
Hmm.
move into your good.
It takes that realization, but I believe you can't do that alone. To figure those things out, you
Right.
just can't. It's like an author writes a book. You can't proofread your own stuff because you're only going to see what you want to see,
Exactly.
not all the stuff out here. And for that, that's where therapy comes into play with somebody like you helping somebody else out. Realize, for me, before we met, a little bit of therapy, hypnotherapy was my game changer.
Yes.
Uh, and,
Yes.
ju- and just learning about all of this stuff. Uh,
Absolutely. Like
the,
one of the things I do, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before I totally forget, the hypnosis, I was thinking the same thing, or same page, because a lot of times when I do hypnosis with people, I'm renewing their mind, their subconscious, because once you kind of change, get to the subconscious level and they're not arguing themselves out of the suggestions, they can do it easily. And one of the couple of suggestions, one is on self confidence, one is on the negative thinking, and one is on love and trust. That we're not reacting to people as based on old people from our past that have hurt us, but so that you can just use hypnosis for not feeling rejected or fearful in relationship, and then repeating the self-fulfilling prophecy, chapter 1 of my book. So that can help, an easy way to help you. Just go into a nice little guided meditation and absorbing good thoughts, and it sinks in and absorbs.
One thing that stands out for me in doing this work, and it's working on yourself, is
Mhm.
that when things are negative, instead of getting on the negative lane of the roadway, you immediately or more quickly turn your
Yeah,
car back to the positive road.
exactly. That's right. It's
We're
like
all going to be negative.
moment,
That's not going away. Newsflash,
right?
bulletin.
Right.
We are going to be negative. Life can be negative. People can be negative. You're not getting away from that. This is not put the glasses on, like, oh, sunshine, butterflies, lollipops, wonderful. No, but when you do that work, hypnotherapy, therapy, whatever it may be, you're able to refocus faster. And it's kind of weird. I found it's like, I'll be negative. Oh boy, well, that's coming. I don't worry about that. And then I can turn my head and look in another, like literally look in that direction over there and say, ah, some good stuff. There's some good stuff happening here. Yeah, it's all right.
Exactly.
But previously, it would be more stay in the negative. Oh boy, and then, call your friend. Can you believe what's happening?
Correct.
Um, we should call you
Good,
and
good job.
connect. How do we do that? How do we do that, Ann? What's your
Yes,
website?
I think the easiest way to find me, just we go to the directory online, like Psychology Today, where they have all kind of providers, and just look me up, Ann Creekmore, and Creekmore. And then there's a link right there that you just click under my name. That'll take you right to my website. It has everything on it there that you need.
Awesome. And of course, your book. Details on your book or books.
Yes.
Just all good stuff. And I've said it before. I need to repeat it. Your books are like your GPS for life. It's, you know,
Thank
this
you.
stuff can be a little, a little woo-woo, hard to understand sometimes. You make it very easy to understand in your books.
Yeah. Oh, good.
And I love it. Love talking with you. Thanks for being here
Love
today.
talking with you. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll catch up soon. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.